Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. Welcome to the Global Chamber special Globinar and also global podcast of Global Chamber. We, in the podcast, pick very special people, and we have one of those today. Dobrina Ustun is an attorney at law at Ustun Law. She's the founder. She's an attorney that is particularly adept at immigration. However, she also covers all sorts of business law. What a background she has. Originally from Bulgaria, living and working in Dallas, Texas. She works with companies primarily and individuals all across the US and the world, really every country. And so she has a practice that for the last several years, because of the emphasis on immigration, has undoubtedly been exciting, interesting, frustrating, and probably some other descriptors that are not publishable here on this podcast. And I'm sure Dobrina is so adept and so knowledgeable and so smooth in terms of how she would describe it. She'll be able to do it much better than I. We are going to talk about immigration today. We are going to talk about global business law. And who better to have than Dobrina? Dobrina, welcome. I just really pleased to speak with you more today. Why don't we kick off by just maybe, if you could, just give a little bit of a background on yourself and correct any mistakes that I may have made in the introduction, please.
Thank you. That actually, everything you said was perfect. It's true. I don't need to correct anything. So thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, as you mentioned, originally I'm from Bulgaria. I moved to the United States back in 1999. I had my own immigration journey into the United States. It took a few years, more like, 10, 12 years before I actually became a permanent resident and then ultimately US citizen. So, and then I didn't have enough of that excitement. So I decided to become an immigration attorney to continue the journey with other people. Currently, I'm based in Dallas, Texas, but given that I practice immigration law, we have clients from pretty much everywhere as a company or individuals and families as well. So I handle anything from startups that are in the United States and trying to hire, their first H-1B or apply for a permanent resident for their star employee, to mid-sized companies, to some, large companies as well on, individual basis. In addition to doing the immigration paperwork, sometimes the companies also retain for just to review their, do an internal audit for their immigration work or do some kind of immigration policy for their company in the event that they get a government audit. So it's pretty diverse practice. In addition to that, we also do some pro bono work. Of course, we always have to do pro bono with the, helping Afghan refugees in light of the crisis since like the, end of August. So, so that's kind of, what I do in a nutshell.
Okay, very good. I would like to cover the Afghan situation a little bit later in our conversation. In the meantime, I know we all know that the immigration situation in the US has always been difficult. The last several years has been more. I mean, how have you maintained your sanity, and are you optimistic about the future?
Yeah, maintaining sanity, challenging, but we did it. We made it. It was challenging, especially for for our clients on the employer side and on the employee side. So the main challenge for employers was obviously, the employer has this multi-million-dollar project, and they cannot get their employee or their star employee to actually implement the project, and ultimately losing the project. So, we had a few cases where the employer basically lost, multi-million dollars because they couldn't get the people that they needed on time. So that's obviously, that's unfortunate. It's frustrating, and to say the least. So those were some of the challenges. Obviously, then you have employees who are stuck outside the United States, trying to come, or their families. One is here in the United States, the other one is stuck outside the United States because of the visa ban and whatnot. So those were very challenging times. Now, it's still challenging, I want to say, due to COVID and the things that happened during, the last 2 years, the backlogs, and, basically the way the US government handled this, whole COVID situation. It just created backlogs for years to come. They were even on the record the other day, because there's a lot of litigation right now for delays, and they were on the record that like a couple of weeks ago, saying that currently Immigration Services has more than 9 million pending cases. They don't even know how many, but they know it's more than 9 million.
Wow.
So, obviously that creates a lot of anxiety, and, you cannot really plan. But, in the meantime, we are starting to see a little bit, improvement, at least from the government's perspective. We're a little bit more responsive, in the sense that when you send an email, you probably will get a response. So we didn't have that, in the last couple of years. Now it's a little bit better.
Okay. Oh, that's I guess progress. That's good.
Yeah, I'll take it.
You mentioned about U.S. employers. Well, actually, you mainly mentioned about foreign employers, I think, coming into the U.S. U.S. employers also can sponsor and bring in foreign employees as well. What are some of the options and processes there, and what's the outlook?
So the most common scenario is a U.S. company, based in the United States, initially hires a, international student on F1 or, OPT to work for them for 1 year out of school, and then they could file for, for their H-1B change status in the United States, and then they will have the employee for maximum of 6 years. So that's the most common, sort of path. The other option is, if that U.S. employer finds somebody outside the United States, they can also petition for their work visa H-1B with Immigration Services. Or if the U.S. employer has the office outside the United States, let's say, they have a subsidiary, or their headquarters, are outside the United States and they have a subsidiary in the United States, or vice versa, they can bring their employees from the foreign office into the United States using multiple, options like H-1B or the L-1A, which is the intercompany transfer. Only thing is, they have to be obviously patient, because one thing is, here Immigration Services, as I mentioned, they have so many cases pending, and it's a little slow. But then also we have our, the U.S. consulates outside the, obviously United States. They don't have a lot of visa appointments. So in order for you to get a visa, you have to schedule for a visa appointment. And somebody was telling me, a client was telling me the other day that for example, in India, they'll just release 3 appointments a day, and you have thousands of people waiting. So, that could create a little bit of a anxiety, but it is possible. The good news is, though, the travel ban, so people will be allowed to come to the United States starting November 1st. So we won't have the travel ban anymore. Of course, the U.S. government will require foreign travelers to have a COVID vaccine. So that will be the requirement to enter the United States starting November 1st. So that's the good news. At least now we'll get some travel.
Okay. So interns, for instance, foreign interns, there's certainly a greater probability of that happening going forward.
Yeah, so if if you have a U.S. employer trying to get interns, or like kind of having a sort of long-term planning, they can a lot of them recruit from U.S. universities. So let's say you're a tech company and you need a few software engineers. You can recruit from U.S. universities, international students that are about to graduate or have graduated already, and employ them either for 1 year or 3 years, depending on their employment authorization, and then ultimately they can petition for their H-1B or permanent residency. So that's it's very common. That's how a lot of U.S. employers get interns, and then they turn that into full-time employment.
In these different scenarios, whether it's a U.S. company bringing people in or it's a foreign company bringing people in, how do you get involved, you and your team? What's the connection point? Who do you work with typically at the companies, and how does that work?
So for me, it's always, the company is the client. So the company is responsible, for the fees. That's how immigration works. Employee should not pay anything, including attorney fees or filing fees for the USCIS. So most of the time, no, actually all of the time, I get involved with the employer. So usually we do get involved with, first, depending on the size of the employer. So if it's a startup, obviously my communication is, with the president or the CEO. If it's more established company, they most likely have an HR person. So, that's my connection. It's the HR person. And sometimes it's like, let's say the company has no idea about H-1B, then or whatever, any immigration options for their employees, they will tell the employee, well, find an immigration attorney and we'll work with them. So sometimes, sometimes the employees reach out, and then there's like, well, I'll introduce you to my employer. But legally speaking, my relationship is with the employer.
Okay, that makes sense. And you work with companies primarily in the U.S., but also in other countries as well, Canada, Mexico, other places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are so there are two types. So some are already established companies, so they have an office in in Mexico, let's say, and they have office in the United States, and they want to transfer a person from the Mexican office to the United States. So it's called intercompany transfer. So that's one option. The second one is it's actually an entrepreneur that they have business outside the United States, and they want to expand into the United States. So they don't have anything yet in the United States. So they want to transfer themselves into the United States to open up a new office and start a business here in the United States. So those are very, very popular, especially for people who already run a successful business outside the United States and want to bring either their services or their product into the United States, and hire local people here. So that's those are the two types that usually I get involved. And the third one is actually if it's called an investor visa. So this is a little bit more limited, because in order to work, the United States needs to have a treaty with the foreign country, like any type of treaty. And we have treaties with I think it's about 100 countries, I believe. So that's the entry requirement. I mean, for example, we have treaties, with most of Western Europe, some with Eastern Europe, some with the treaties with the Middle East. some of those countries, we don't have a treaty with China or India. So that, that program does not apply to, people from China or India. So basically they have to, requirement is the treaty, and then they have to make investment. They have to invest around $100,000, either buy a franchise in the United States and run it, or start their own business. Usually franchise is a better option for people who never run a business before, but they have some money, and then they want to come to the United States and run a franchise, for example, because franchise, they train you and it's already operating, so it's not as speculative. But there are also others that, they just want to start their own thing, and, they have the idea, they have the resources. So those are fine as well.
Do you actually refer them to either directly to franchises or to like brokers and things like that?
So the ones that I've dealt with, they already knew what they want to do.
Okay.
They usually it's, especially during COVID, which is very interesting, it was fast food. So I had a few clients that actually bought fast food franchises. So they kind of already knew what they wanted to do, and they were ready sort of, with their ideas. So I haven't had the need to refer them out to look for a franchise.
I see. Okay. You mentioned about investment visas, and I'm curious in terms of visa green card options and kind of the old EB-5 program, kind of where you think that stands.
So the old EB-5 program is a mess. So we have a lot of litigation right now. That's one. Two, it actually, the Congress didn't certify it for this year. So we are waiting to see if they're going to extend it, for next year. So it's kind of, right now I don't get involved with EB-5. It's just you cannot predict what's going to happen. And every time you have a lot of litigation along the way, it's not a good sign. So it creates a lot of anxiety, especially given the amount of money that is being invested. Obviously, it's understandable that people, will be anxious and angry. So that's where we are with the EB-5. That's the regional centers. Now, if you want to do direct investment, that's more, I think it was, $1 million where you have to, create your own business. But that's, easier said than done. A lot of the EB-5s are geared towards the regional centers.
Okay. Those are still active, right? Or not?
Yeah. Well, the regional centers, so they're not necessarily active right now because the program expires every year, and the Congress needs to recertify the program. Well, they didn't do that in June. They went on vacation without certifying the program. So now we are waiting, for them to actually go back and certify it, but they haven't they have other things to do right now. So and then also the litigation portion is because it's on the amount of investment. So during, it used to be 500,000. Then during the Trump administration, it went up to 900,000. Then there was a lawsuit or multiple lawsuits that were filed, and then the court decided, it's going to be 500,000. And then now the current administration is appealing that. They want it back to 900,000. So it's a little hectic.
Got it. Okay. It seems to summarize a lot of what you get involved with on the immigration side, a little hectic.
Just a little.
The visa green card situation, then, how would you describe that, and things like, processing times, what are we talking about these days, and is it getting better?
So as I mentioned, delays. So right now, we're just asking people to be patient because, there's nothing I can do to expedite somebody's application. Like we don't work for USCIS or the consulate. I mean, they are processing applications. Obviously, people are filing. It's just it takes longer. So, you know, the proper planning is required, especially if you're in the United States and you have a visa that is expiring, but then at the same time you have a green card that you're about to file, or is pending already. You know, proper planning, and you should be doing proper planning for that. Other than that, I mean, it's, you know, nothing really has changed. Some people have the idea that, you know, because we changed administration and now, you know, the new administration is just like giving green cards left and right. That's not the case. You know, it's still, they're still pretty strict. Nothing really has changed on that front. So there's a lot of talk, and I see, like, you know, different media platforms, you know, people saying, well, now, you know, we have a new administration, maybe it's easier. No, it's not. The laws, you know, they haven't changed. The people working for the government, they haven't changed. So on that, you know, whoever is like spreading these rumors, those are wrong. The only thing, you know, well, not the only thing, but at least something positive that we see is more now the government is trying to get slightly more involved with us as attorneys, so we get a little bit better communication in terms of, you know, what's happening. Just a little, though, not like, you know, nothing crazy out there. And it feels like, you know, you can, there's some kind of communication channel right now, a little bit. Like, for example, you know, I'm working on actually right now on a E2 investor visa for somebody from Bulgaria, and, you know, I emailed the consulate, and within 24 hours, you know, I have all my answers. So that was not exactly the case during, you know, COVID times. So you know, I mean, we celebrate, you know, the good things.
So there are some good things. That's encouraging.
Yeah.
For instance, as employers here in the U.S. that sponsor foreign employees, are there certain things that they often make mistakes on? And are there things like, for instance, you know, written policies around how to handle them? Are things like that good ideas? And what are some of the other things that you generally suggest, you know, that they do as they bring in these folks?
Yeah, so policies, internal policies are, you know, always a great idea, especially for U.S. employers, you know, who employ foreign nationals. So if you have, even if you have one, but, you know, even if you have, you know, a significant amount of, you know, foreign nationals working for you here in the United States, you know, the likelihood of getting an audit at some point is, I mean, it's there. Obviously, you know, I mean, any company gets an audit, you know, either from the DOL or from ICE. So one of the things, actually the most common mistake, I would say, or oversight that, you know, usually happens at the, you know, on the employer side is the I-9, you know, verification. So every time you hire a foreign national, you have to, well, not a foreign national, anytime, you know, you hire a new hire, basically, you're onboarding anybody, you have to, as an employer, you have to do I-9 form. Basically, that's to verify that they have the proper authorization to work. This applies to, you know, U.S. citizens, permanent residents, you know, anybody that you hire. And, you know, obviously you have to keep those records either digitally or at the office. And at some point, ICE will come and audit these. Those are periodic audits. Doesn't mean that necessarily you did something wrong. It's just that they come in and they audit your files. And most of the time, either the employer does not have the I-9 or they have them, but they're, you know, like, you know, full with mistakes. So, you know, and then the penalty for these are crazy. So it's only like a 2-page form, and you know, they charge you anywhere between $300 to $1,500 per mistake. And mistake is considered like, oh, you didn't put the employee's apartment number. So because that's how they make money. the government. But if you have, so let's say you don't have I-9s, or you have them, but they're not exactly in a very good condition. But then you also have some kind of a policy, how you hire, who you hire, how you basically conduct your onboarding, and you kind of show that to the government agency. Could be ICE, could be DOL, DHS, doesn't matter. Instead of that penalty being $1,000, maybe they'll be like, well, you made a good faith effort actually by having that policy. So maybe we'll, instead of $1,000, we'll charge you $500. So, so these internal policies, a lot of employers are using it as a, mitigating mitigating factor when they have those audits. I'm not saying that, you're not gonna get like, sanctioned or charged with, all these fees or fines, but at least it's not, instead of $100,000, maybe it's gonna be 50. So that's, always a good idea. Also, if you're a larger employer and then you have foreign nationals that you employ foreign nationals, if you always remember that it's, offering immigration benefits is a good retention tool as well. And you can hire actually talent that you want, and you can retain them. So I always, tell employers, don't look that as it's just another expense. No, because, once, people that are interested in applying for permanent residence, they will work for you. So it's a great retention tool. And when you're interviewing them, and then the employee says, well, I would need sponsorship, and you really want to hire them, then you can talk about your immigration policy, actually show them the immigration policy book that you have internally. And that way, they see that as an employer, you're serious, you're serious about the employee's immigration journey.
Got it. You are an attorney, and it looks like from your LinkedIn profile that you were involved with immigration issues, even in college here in the States. Was that an accident? And do you, how do you feel about that now in retrospect? You're so knowledgeable and you're right on top of everything, but it's, boy, how extremely frustrating. But you seem to still be very passionate and really care about it. Is it the clients that really drive kind of what you're doing, keeps that passion going and your interest to stay? And how do you feel about now immigration law and your decision so far back to stick with it?
Yeah, so I don't know if I found immigration law or immigration law found me. Well, I mean, I was forced to actually go through the immigration path anyway, so maybe it found me. I don't know.
You were forced. What is that?
But the thing is, yeah, I mean, one thing is through this work, just the people that I meet and the clients, that I interact with, I think that's definitely, the driving force. Because you just sometimes, like I look back and I'm like, I work with all these, all these clients that actually really contribute to, the United States. I mean, just recently, people involved with, I had a client with, with Pfizer, they were actually involved with distributing the vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine last year. Other scientists that, are trying to find cure for cancer, who, investigative journalists that are publishing. So it's just, I mean, the diversity of the clients that I work with, it's something that, I guess drives me every day, and it sort of tempers on the other, more of the hectic things that happen. But, that's, there's always the drive.
So no regrets, it sounds like.
No, yeah, I mean, or maybe you should have asked me, like 2 years ago, but.
So that means it's getting better, right? You're getting a little more satisfaction from it now?
Yeah, because, you especially, when you file cases that, I mean, you see that individual, literally is saving lives as we speak. And, it gets denied. Well, that's obviously, it's just, it's pure insanity. And it was happening, in the last 4 years, I would say. Now I feel like, it's a little slightly better in terms of, how things are, looked at. It's not great. I mean, I don't want to sound like, oh, now everybody's like, getting their green cards approved, like, day 3. No, that's not the case. But it feels, as I said, it feels, a little more reasonable. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. How does it compare, I'm curious, with other countries, and maybe in particular Bulgaria, in terms of the immigration process? And then on the US side, if you had a magic wand, what would you do to change things?
So to your first question, how it compares to other countries. So, obviously I do US immigration law. I'm not, I don't specialize in other countries. But I don't know, people say that, we have it easier than many places. I don't know if it's true or not. You mentioned, Bulgaria. I think Bulgaria, again, I don't know much about it. Only thing I know that they do have this golden visa type of program where, you can buy a citizenship through an investment of some sort. Now they do have actually something new that just came about. They have now approved that Nomad digital visa thingy where you can go and work from there for some period of time. I think other countries also implemented the digital Nomad visa during COVID because they wanted people to actually visit their countries and boost the tourism. So that's that's my sort of knowledge of other places. I know it's not easy. It's never easy. I mean, it's no country can just like opens the door and says, okay, everybody can come in. But you have to be reasonable. And that's if I had a magic wand, I mean, there are things that I would probably would do here in the United States. Like, for example, anybody that graduates with a PhD, they should be, they should have like a green card stamped in their passport.
Interesting idea. Great idea.
Radical, I don't know, but seriously, I mean, and if anybody spends that much money into the education system in the United States and contributes, they should have their green card stamp. Let's not forget that last statistic that I remember, only 1% in the population of the United States has a PhD degree. Only 1%, a doctorate. So you wanna.
Other 1%. Got it.
Huh?
The other 1%.
Yes, yeah. That's not the other 1%. That's the people with PhD. They usually don't fall into the IRS 1% bracket. But that's one thing that I would support. It's just that it just makes sense. Instead of helping these people to actually stay here if they want to stay, sometimes going through some of these immigration processes discourages people. So and you want to give the option for them to stay here. So that's one thing that I would do.
Okay, great idea. What do you think about these e-residency programs like with Estonia and other countries where they're encouraging people to come in, right, and to live? We don't have anything like that, right?
Yeah, we don't. So the other thing that I would do if I could is some kind of a startup visa. United States does not have a startup visa, and a lot of people don't really understand that in terms of I would have clients who say, well, can I apply for a startup visa? And I'm like, we don't have one. We depending on your profile, depending on what you want to do, we have to slot you into one of the other visas, like either investor visa or work visa or whatever else is available. But we don't have a startup visa necessarily. So that's what the other countries are capitalizing on, looking into how much interest people have from other parts of the world in developing a startup or starting their own company, but United States is not welcoming that necessarily. So you have Estonia and other places looking, it's like, well, I mean, maybe we can attract these people to come in and have access to the European Union and start developing their company and helping us with the economy. So I think what they're doing is great. As I said, I don't know the details for these programs. I know that they exist, and I know that that was probably the primary reason they wanted to have these programs, because they wanted to boost their own local economy. We do have what were they calling it? So it's the entrepreneur parole or something like that the United States has. But it's so limited. I mean, it's really like probably 5 people will qualify for this. so that's not the idea. You don't want to put out a program that sounds great, but then when you actually start like going through the regulations, literally like 5 people will qualify. So that's I mean, it's a waste.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we did talk about that recently, and it sounded really great. So I did.
Amazing idea. But it's like, yeah, I mean, you have to have a government funding, like what was it, 250,000 or something like that. It's again, who, like an entrepreneur who is about to start, their journey, they don't have that. So how, they're automatically disqualified.
Got it. What about issues and like they come to the U.S. and they can't buy a car or rent a car because they don't have credit? I mean, do you get involved in stuff like that, or just kind of living is difficult for these people too, right?
Yeah, so I don't, because I just I'm not versed into I don't know how to help them with these problems, but there are companies and credit unions that specialize in giving credit to people, foreign nationals, or usually it's actually foreign employees that come and work for a US company. So they are credit unions out there that they contract with the employer themselves. So that is offered, as a benefit packet to the employee, to the foreign employee, in addition to their healthcare and, all of the, the 401ks and so forth. So that's additional benefit that some companies here offer to their employees.
Got it. Okay, I think one of them is a member there in Dallas, Adventure.
Yes, yeah. I forget the name.
Adventure.
I know it was starting with an A. Yeah, so they're a great example. So, but I don't think that, I'm not sure if they work directly with individual employees or they actually work more with companies. So they're like a vendor to the company, and then the company offers that service to the employee. So I think they were more they had a relationship with the companies more than with individuals.
Okay, great. And if anybody out there is interested, let us know, because they do good work, and I forgot about that. Afghanistan, it's it's a mess, and you're involved. I've got to believe, right? I mean, just out of the goodness of your heart and trying to do the right thing. Tell us more about kind of what you're seeing and how you're involved, and maybe make some suggestions for others if there are ways to get involved.
Yeah, so I'm involved, of course. So I'm involved that sort of on 100% pro bono basis. So we don't charge clients for services that we provide to Afghan nationals. It is a mess. It is hard because we don't necessarily, it's one of those areas where we don't really have any legal means to help. So we have to go outside our I shouldn't say outside the law, because that would sound illegal, but basically we don't have any legal means to help these people. So at that point, then we start calling, who do we know our local representatives, Congress people, senators, others within the Department of State, Global Chamber, for one of my clients that we had a pending asylum application. And I can share that because, that's actually on the, CBS News already, we did a story about it. So it's public information. We had a pending asylum application for them. And I needed a letter, recommendation letter from military, U.S. military personnel or person who has actually worked in Iraq or has been into Afghanistan. And I reached out to everybody, and of course the Global Chamber helped with a connection. So kudos to that. My clients got approved, so they got their asylum, so that's good. They're here, sound and safe. This is the extent to which we have to go in order to help the Afghan refugees. Now the challenge is we have people, and I'm looking here at my file folders, we have at least 10 families now that are in Afghanistan hiding, literally hiding, trying to get out of Afghanistan somehow. And that's the part that we don't know how, because they have to now, obviously US is out, and now they're only private rescue groups, other NGOs on the ground that are helping people and putting them on private planes, private jets, whoever is out there, to get them to a third country like Pakistan, Turkey, in order for us then to file for their parole. But that, we can file only once they're outside of Afghanistan. So the challenge is getting out of Afghanistan. So these families, they actually worked for the US military, and now they're targets, of the Taliban. And all of them, to my knowledge, are currently hiding somewhere, and they're going from place to place so that they cannot track them. One of them, and I kid you not, I even have the picture. Obviously, I'm not going to share it. One of them got kidnapped by the Taliban. And they sent me a picture of basically the Taliban pointing guns on his head and all that. So he managed to escape all that, but now obviously he can in hiding. So those are the challenges, because as I said, there's no legal means for me to say, okay, these people need to get on a plane. There's nothing like that. So now the challenge is reaching out to congressmen or women's offices, senators, Department of State. Anybody and everybody that you can think of, so that we can get their information to them, to the Department of State, so that they can get the information to whoever organization is down on the ground, in order for these people to actually board the plane to either, as I said, Pakistan, Turkey, UAE, any third country that has a US, US consulate, so that we can process from there.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm involved with.
The hope is they would get out by plane or across the border.
And it depends. So it depends if it's a neighboring country, they can, but somebody needs to escort them. So these are almost like covert operations. I don't know exactly what happens. And, some people tell me, well, they cannot tell you how exactly they're gonna get them out. And I'm like, I'm not interested in how they're gonna, as long as they get out, you don't have to share with me, because they cannot just walk across the border. So it has to be done in a specific way so that they're not targeted.
Got it. Wow. Okay. So how can people get involved then? You don't mind somebody contacting you and asking you a question of how they can help, I'm sure.
They are, so they are organizations and nonprofits out there that are currently focused on the Afghan refugee crisis.
Okay.
in different, different ways. So once they come to the United States, then they actually, they have to stay, they put them on a army bases. One is in DC or around DC somewhere, and one is down in Texas to get processed, because a lot of these people, they don't have clearance, right, background checks. So they put them on those army bases in tents here in the United States, and then they process them for 30 days or 60 days. They stay on the army base until all the background checks clear. So once they're processed, then they relocate them to other places, or some of them have relatives or friends that they know, and then obviously their journey starts in the United States, or they have to apply for immigration paperwork. Of course, that is expensive. So some of those nonprofits fundraise for the fees for the paperwork, because for the filing, it's about $500, I believe, for parole, or around that amount. And most of the refugees, they don't, some of them don't even have shoes. Some of them really come barefoot. So that's one aspect of helping in terms of once they're here. What I am doing, and I don't have a nonprofit or anything. I just do it because I got connected here with the community. So it's just, I'm just trying to find people within the US government that actually have the power and can pull strings to help with getting them out of the Afghanistan.
Okay. Got it. Just a couple more questions. One is maybe kind of an overarching one in terms of, we've talked about a lot of different topics today. Is there anything that we left out, or is there anything else that you'd like to share on immigration, on business law, or anything else that we may have either overlooked, or you just want to be able to communicate?
I think we covered a lot. In terms of immigration, I always tell people, don't forget, US is open for business, so even with the current hiccups, to say the least, with the delays and all that, US is always open to business. And there's always opportunities here. Some people get a little intimidated or scared when they hear, you have to wait for your visa, for example, like 6 months or 5 months. That if you really truly want to come to the United States and do business, 5 or 6 months in the long run is nothing. So it's, just part of the process. So, sometimes, I come out as everything is, super hard, and, no, it's not. It's just that, I share that with clients so that they're prepared, so they don't call me and say, well, you didn't tell me that. But that doesn't mean that you have to get scared or, well, you'll get frustrated, but, you kind of have to expect that's part of the process. So that's my, 2 cents there.
Okay, fantastic. How about sharing something about Bulgaria? You're involved with the U.S. Bulgarian Chamber in America. You just opened up or helped open up a chapter in Miami, and I know I saw Lanier Robbins of Global Chamber Miami there as well. You're involved in the homeland. You're involved here with Bulgarians. Tell us a little bit about Bulgaria, something we should know.
So I'm involved with that as well. That's why sometimes 24 hours is not enough, but working on that.
You're on the board of directors, I think, of the
I'm on the advisory boards and legal advisor as well. So the U.S. Bulgarian Chamber is based in DC. It was founded in 2020. Guess what? Right before COVID. So during the obviously 2020, Meetings were not possible, in-person meetings. So we did a lot of sort of reaching out through Zoom, a lot of webinars, conferences, virtual, and kind of, we kind of got it going. So now we just, as you mentioned, opened the first chapter in Miami, just last weekend. And the goal is basically to strengthen the bilateral relationship between the United States and Bulgaria. Now, having said that, also, we do work with other countries in Europe. So the goal is to help, US businesses going, let's say, to Bulgaria to establish presence or in Europe. So that's kind of the main goal of the chamber. And of course, businesses and companies from Bulgaria coming to the United States. So that's the main goal of the chamber. And so far, we have new members, so that's very good. We just had the bias system joining as a member, the defense contractor company. We had a wine producer in Bulgaria that joined us, who will be importing wine into the United States. So it's pretty busy on that front as well.
Oh, we love to collaborate with that chamber, and Elise Nestorov, who's the leader there. And thank you for your leadership, both in the U.S. Bulgarian Chamber in America, and also the Global Chamber. Happens to be your home base in Dallas, but clearly you're a global person. Americans, Bulgarians, and whoever else is necessary to help. And that's a great spirit, and certainly representative of the global tribe, and you've taken it to the next level. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for taking the time today. You are, as it's amazing every time. You just exceed yourself. So thank you so much for all that you've shared, all that you do. And we look forward to next steps in terms of working together and continuing to support your growth. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Global Chamber.
My pleasure. Thanks. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.